In an early draft of the script, writer and director James Gunn considered using the Fantastic Four villain Annihilus as the antagonist for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Actor Jacob Elordi, who plays Elvis Presley in the movie Priscilla, has said that most of his knowledge about the singer came from the Disney animated movie Lilo and Stitch. Icelandic musician Hilda Guðnadóttir agreed to compose the score for Kenneth Branagh's A Haunting in Venice because her mother was an avid reader of the books by Dame Agatha Christie. Jodie Comer had initially been cast as Josephine in Ridley Scott's upcoming movie Napoleon, having previously worked with Scott on The Last Duel. Comer was forced to drop out and was replaced by actress Vanessa Kirby. Actor Clive Owen was initially reluctant to take the role in Inside Man because his face would be covered up for a large part of the movie. However, he accepted the role as he was keen to work with the film's director, Spike Lee. Matthew McConaughey's chest-thumping and humming in The Wolf of Wall Street was just something the actor did to warm up. It was at Leonardo DiCaprio's request that they incorporate it into the movie. This scene has since become iconic. Viggo Mortensen was only given a few hours to decide to accept the role of Aragorn in The Lord of the Rings. It was down to Mortensen's son, Henry, who convinced him to take the role, as he was such a huge fan of the books. Actor Austin Butler has said that working with Tom Hardy on The Bike Riders was intense. He said Hardy would be joking around on set till action was called, and then he would transform into the most intense guy he'd ever seen. In The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, the Ringwraith who arrives in the Shire is voiced by Gollum actor Andy Serkis. Rather than hire a new actor for 2 lines, director Peter Jackson thought Andy Serkis would be perfect. Star Wars creator George Lucas has a cameo in Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. When Anakin attends the opera to meet with Chancellor Palpatine, Lucas is seen outside the Chancellor's private box. Christopher Nolan chose to plant 500 acres of corn in a real environment to shoot the cornfield scenes for Interstellar, rather than using CGI. The corn was then farmed and sold for a profit after the scenes were shot. Director of Home Alone 2 Chris Columbus stated that the Donald Trump cameo was put into the film because it was the only way they were allowed to film at the Plaza Hotel. At the time, Donald Trump owned the Plaza Hotel in New York City. The Killer has been a passion project of director David Fincher's for around 20 years. At one point, Fincher wanted to make the movie with Brad Pitt in the lead role back in 2008. However, Pitt said that the role was too nihilistic for him. Mark Ruffalo revealed that when he and his manager were negotiating salary for his role in the movie Zodiac, the studio's negotiator told him they don't want Mark Ruffalo in the movie, so he should just take the offered salary or leave the project. Margot Robbie was initially only set to produce the Barbie movie and had never pictured herself in the role. She had actually wanted Gal Gadot to play the lead role instead of her. However, after Gadot turned the role down, Robbie had to step in. For Saving Private Ryan, all the main actors, except for Matt Damon, underwent several days of rigorous military training. Damon was exempted so the other actors would feel resentment towards him and would convey that emotion in their performances. Actress Jessica Chastain had initially been approached to play the role of Dr. Christine Palmer in Doctor Strange. Chastain turned down the role because the character was not a superhero. Rachel McAdams was cast in the role instead. Aaron Paul, the actor who played Jesse Pinkman in Breaking Bad, revealed that he received no residual payments despite the show's massive success on Netflix. One of SAG-AFTRA's demands is that actors receive fair residual payments from streaming services. At 1 hour 45 minutes in length, The Marvels is the shortest movie from Marvel Studios to date. The previous holders were Thor: The Dark World and The Incredible Hulk, which ran at 1 hour and 52 minutes in length. Actor Tony Todd was able to negotiate a $1,000 bonus in Candyman for every time he was stung by a bee, in the scene where he had bees in his mouth. Todd was paid $23,000 in a bonus for the 23 stings he received for filming the scene. The animatronic mascots in the upcoming Five Nights at Freddy's movie will be played by actors in costumes rather than solely be CGI. The costumes have been enlarged to accommodate actors so they can walk around and perform on set in the animatronic costumes. Clint Eastwood sat on the script for Unforgiven for around 10 years because he didn't think he was old enough to take on the character of William Money. After starring in and directing the movie, Clint Eastwood would go on to win his first Academy Award for directing. Liam Neeson had been attached to play President Abraham Lincoln for Steven Spielberg. Neeson had been researching the role for a few years but dropped out of the project after his wife, Natasha Richardson, had died. Daniel Day-Lewis was then cast as Abraham Lincoln. Zombieland was actually written as a television pilot but needed to be heavily rewritten in order for it to work as a feature film. One of the leftovers from the TV pilot was the Zombie Kill of the Week. This was going to feature at the end of every episode of the TV series. Godzilla Minus One has broken records in Japan, being the largest IMAX debut for a live-action film. The movie was able to generate $1.2 million at the box office across just 49 IMAX screens. On the set of Poltergeist, real skeletons were used instead of prop ones as they were more expensive. Jo Beth Williams, who interacts with the bodies in the water, was only told they were real and not props after the scene had been shot and completed. During the filming of Groundhog Day, actor Bill Murray was bitten twice by the groundhog. The bites were so severe that Murray needed to go to hospital and have anti-rabies injections as a precaution. The on-set doctor was unaware if groundhogs carried rabies. Oppenheimer is the first Christopher Nolan movie since Insomnia not to feature actor Michael Caine. Caine has appeared in all of Nolan's films from Batman Begins to Tenet. Although he did not appear on screen, his voice was used in the 2017 film Dunkirk. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, Daniel Radcliffe needed to do 95 takes when the other characters took Polyjuice Potion to all look like Harry. Radcliffe needed to wear other characters' costumes and the scenes needed to match so they could be clipped together correctly. Zeb Orrelios, who first appeared in the animated series Star Wars Rebels and then in live action in the third season of The Mandalorian, was designed based on Ralph McQuarrie's concept art for Chewbacca from the original Star Wars film. Jamie Dornan has revealed that he auditioned for the role of Superman in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. Dornan said that he showed up to the first audition in some Superman pyjamas but wasn't able to get a callback or even be considered a frontrunner for the role. Actor David Corenswet allegedly auditioned for the role of Adam Warlock in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, a role which went to Will Poulter. Corenswet has now been cast in James Gunn's next project, Superman Legacy, as Clark Kent, aka Superman. Emily Swallow, who plays the Armourer in The Mandalorian, has said it would have been disappointing if her character had secretly been a spy for Moff Gideon. Swallow did also say she took it personally that fans thought her character would betray the other Mandalorians. Godzilla Minus One has widely been reported to have had a budget of around $15 million. However, the film's director, Takashi Yamazaki, has now denied that the film had a budget of $15 million. He stated, "I wish it were that much." Martin Scorsese wanted to cast Al Pacino as Costello in The Departed, as he had wanted to work with the actor for many years. However, Pacino turned down the role and Jack Nicholson was cast instead.
Scorsese wouldn't work with Pacino till his 2019 movie The Irishman.
Coco, the dog who plays Sari in Prey, was a rescue dog from a shelter and had no prior training. She began training on the set of Prey and would often ruin takes just by running off randomly. Despite this, she was included in more and more scenes as filming progressed. For his role in Mank, Gary Oldman wanted to wear heavy prosthetics to look more like the real-life Herman J. Mankiewicz, but David Fincher, the director of the movie, convinced him to wear less makeup so that his performance would be more natural and the emotion would be seen on the actor's face. Before Hayden Christensen was cast as Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars Episode II: Attack of the Clones, George Lucas had met with Leonardo DiCaprio for the role. DiCaprio reportedly said he wasn't ready to take a dive on a project like this. Sharon Stone confirmed that the studio didn't want to cast Leonardo DiCaprio in The Quick and the Dead. The studio told Stone if she wanted him to be in the film so much, she would have to pay for his salary herself. Stone agreed to reduce her salary on the movie in order to pay for DiCaprio's role. Director Gareth Edwards, who directed Godzilla in 2014, attended a screening of Godzilla Minus One. After seeing Godzilla Minus One, the director revealed he was very jealous of the movie and stated that this is what a Godzilla movie should be like. Emma Thomas, the producing partner and wife of Christopher Nolan, said that the box office performance for Oppenheimer exceeded their expectations. Thomas said that it was a pipe dream for Oppenheimer's opening weekend to surpass Dunkirk, but it ended up making almost twice as much at the box office. Mark Ruffalo was able to win the role of Chuck Yule in Martin Scorsese's Shutter Island after writing the director a letter praising his work and stating how much he wanted to work with him. Before Ruffalo was cast, both Robert Downey Jr. and Josh Brolin were considered for the role. For his role in 12 Years a Slave, actor Michael Fassbender had his moustache painted with alcohol by his makeup artist. He did this in order for the other actors he worked with to react naturally to the strong odour of alcohol, the same way they would to someone who had been heavily drinking. Before casting Anna Taylor-Joy in the lead role of Furiosa, Jodie Comer had reportedly been the frontrunner to play the titular character. George Miller reportedly sought to cast Anna Taylor-Joy after seeing her performance in a rough cut of Edgar Wright's movie Last Night in Soho. Steven Spielberg was originally attached to direct the movie Maestro about Leonard Bernstein. Bradley Cooper was still attached to star at the time. However, after Spielberg had seen Bradley Cooper's directorial debut with A Star is Born, Spielberg said that Cooper should direct the film instead. In How the Grinch Stole Christmas, when the Grinch pulls the tablecloth from the table, all the items were supposed to fall off. Whilst shooting the scene, Jim Carrey managed to pull the tablecloth off without any of the items being knocked down. He then improvised and knocked off all the items from the table afterwards. The photo that Kevin finds of Buzz's girlfriend in Home Alone is actually a boy in a wig. The producers of the film did not want to make fun of a girl's appearance in the movie, so opted to have a boy dress up in the photo instead. The art director's son volunteered to pose for the picture in a wig to be used in the movie. The scene in HBO's The Last of Us featuring a giraffe at Salt Lake City Zoo was not CGI. A real giraffe named Naboo was used on set. Before filming, Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey visited the local zoo to meet Naboo, so he was used to them before they filmed the scene. In order to do performance capture for the children characters in the Polar Express, adult actors performed the actions on the set with oversized props in order to capture the scale of the children being smaller. Tom Hanks did all the motion capture for the character Hero Boy. Christopher Nolan has revealed that his favourite moment in the movie business was telling actor Cillian Murphy that he was to be cast in the lead role in Oppenheimer. Nolan had previously worked with Murphy in smaller roles in Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, Inception, The Dark Knight Rises, and Dunkirk. Lily Gladstone, who had been unsuccessful in finding acting work during the COVID-19 pandemic, was considering changing careers and enrolling in a data analytics course. However, she received an email inviting her to audition for none other than Martin Scorsese for a role in Killers of the Flower Moon. Liam Neeson has recently revealed that George Lucas told him and Ewan McGregor to stop making the lightsaber noises whilst filming scenes in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The actors were assured that they would add the sound in later and they were not required to make the noises themselves. James Gunn has said the new lineup of the Guardians of the Galaxy at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was handpicked by him and not forced upon him by Marvel Studios. The new team is led by Rocket Raccoon and features Groot, Kraglin, Cosmo, Adam Warlock and Thyla. Author of The Godfather, Mario Puzo, was drafted in to write the screenplay of his novel, despite not having written a screenplay prior. Years later, Puzo picked up a screenwriting book to look into how to write screenplays. The first chapter of the book said you should study The Godfather 1's screenplay. Actor Timothée Chalamet reportedly got sick multiple times on the set of Wonka. This was due to the fact that he ate so many chocolates and sweets for multiple takes during the film's production. The film's director, Paul King, also became sick several times after ingesting too many sweets. Al Pacino had initially been approached to play the titular role in Donnie Brasco. However, after reading the script, he said he was more interested in playing the character Lefty Ruggiero instead. Pacino then personally recommended Johnny Depp for the role of Donnie Brasco, and he ended up being cast in the role. Due to the high insurance costs, Adam Driver was prohibited from driving classic Ferraris on the set of Michael Mann's biopic Ferrari. Driver stated that he drove newer Ferraris on a track during pre-production, but the older vintage cars were on a trailer being towed by another vehicle during the filming process. Director Sam Raimi had pushed for his friend and longtime collaborator Bruce Campbell for the lead role in Darkman, but the studio wanted a bigger star. Liam Neeson was cast in the role, but Campbell was able to have a cameo at the end of the film as the final disguise of the titular Darkman. Robert Downey Jr. revealed that he auditioned for the role of Graham in Nancy Meyers' The Holiday. Downey said during the screen test with Kate Winslet he did an English accent, to which Kate Winslet said it was the worst English accent she had ever heard. Jude Law was cast in the role instead. James Wan, director of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, has debunked the rumours that the movie went through months of reshoots due to the film originally being unwatchable. Wan stated that they only did 7 or 8 days of reshoots, which is nothing compared to the usual number of days of reshooting on a big budget movie. Chris Farley was originally cast to voice Shrek and recorded around 80% of the film's dialogue. However, after Farley's death, he was replaced by Mike Myers. Myers insisted that the script be rewritten because he did not want to play the version of Shrek that Farley had created. Martin Scorsese originally wanted Liam Neeson to play the role of Walter Monk McGinn in his film Gangs of New York. However, after reading the script, Neeson was more interested in the smaller role of Priest Vallon. Neeson was then cast in that role, and Brendan Gleeson was cast as McGinn. Director Martin Scorsese has said you should show cinema some respect in regards to his movie Killers of the Flower Moon's 3.5-hour runtime. Scorsese says people will sit through 5 hours of TV in one go, and he also cited that audiences will watch plays in theatres that last as long as his film. In Tenet, Kenneth Branagh spoke his lines in reverse rather than speaking them normally and having the sound reversed in post-production. This was done to make the lines sound more natural when they were played back in reverse. Branagh wrote out what he needed to say phonetically on a whiteboard and then read them during the scene. Alan Rickman's expression in Die Hard when he is dropped was genuine. Whilst filming the scene, Rickman was told he was going to be dropped on the count of 3. However, they dropped him on the count of 1. His expression is of genuine shock of being dropped early by the stunt crew. For Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, it has been revealed that director George Miller didn't want to cast Chris Hemsworth as the film's villain initially, and he only met with the actor as a courtesy. However, Miller fell in love with the idea of Hemsworth playing the character Dementus after meeting with him. In the film Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Tom Felton, who plays Draco Malfoy, asks Goyle why he is wearing glasses. Goyle, who is actually Harry Potter in disguise, replies that he wears them for reading. Tom Felton forgot his next line and improvised by saying, "I didn't know you could read." Before Jamie Dornan had been cast as Christian Grey in 50 Shades of Grey, actor Charlie Hunnam had been cast in the role. The actor reportedly was forced to drop out due to the commitments on his television series Sons of Anarchy and Guillermo del Toro's movie Crimson Peak. Daniel Day-Lewis, Gael Garcia Bernal, and Benicio del Toro were initially cast to play Father Ferreira, Father Rodriguez, and Father Francisco Garp in the film Silence. However, all 3 actors withdrew from the project due to repeated delays in the film's development. Guillermo del Toro had originally planned for actor John Hurt to voice Geppetto in his animated Pinocchio movie. However, John Hurt passed away in 2017 before any of the voiceover recordings were completed. David Bradley was then cast in the role instead. Sandra Bullock had initially been cast in the lead role for $1 Million Baby, but struggled to get the film made as studios told her female boxing movies don't sell. Eventually, Bullock left the project. Clint Eastwood ended up directing the movie, casting Hilary Swank in the lead role instead. In an early draft of the script for Gladiator, there was a scene which had Maximus endorsing olive oil. It was actually historically accurate to have famous gladiators endorsing products, but director Ridley Scott removed the scene as he didn't think the audience would think it was believable, and it may have come off as a joke. In order to portray Leonard Bernstein, Bradley Cooper spent 6 years learning how to conduct music, as he wanted to make the scenes where he composed as authentic as possible. All the preparation was for 6 minutes and 21 seconds of composing, which was recorded live during the production of Maestro. Mary Gibbs, who voices Boo in Monsters, Inc., was only a toddler when she recorded her lines for the role. It was difficult for the crew to get her to stand still in the recording studio and act out the scenes. To get around this difficulty, the crew ended up just following her around while she was playing and recorded whatever she came out with. Ridley Scott, director of Napoleon, has revealed that there is a 4.5-hour director's cut of the film, which he hopes to release one day. The director's cut features much more of Vanessa Kirby's Empress Josephine. The theatrical release of the film is said to only be around 2 hours and 40 minutes in length. Christopher Nolan said there was no plan B in regards to casting David Bowie as Nikola Tesla in The Prestige. Bowie initially turned down the role, however Christopher Nolan personally visited Bowie and convinced him that he was the only person who could play the part. It then only took a few minutes for Bowie to accept the role. Willem Dafoe had to spend 4 hours in the makeup chair for his role in Poor Things, with a further 2 hours at the end of the day to take it all off. Willem Dafoe wasn't able to sleep whilst makeup was being applied. He would have to be up at 3 AM to have the makeup applied before the day's shoot. Child actor labour laws prevented actress Hayley Steinfeld from filming any scenes after midnight on the set of True Grit. Many of her character's scenes were shot at night, so the filmmakers used an adult body double to shoot scenes from over her shoulder or from her back to get around this problem. Michael Caine revealed that after being cast as Ebenezer Scrooge in A Muppet Christmas Carol, he was going to play the role seriously. He would treat the Muppet characters as if they were actors in the Royal Shakespeare Company. During the film, he never gave into the Muppety world, and he never gave a wink to the audience. James Wan, director of Aquaman and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, has revealed that his cancelled spin-off movie, The Trench, was actually a secret Black Manta movie. The director said when the movie didn't go ahead, a lot of the ideas from the project ended up being used in Black Manta's character in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom instead.
Kevin Feige has said the reason Tom Cruise didn't end up getting cast as Iron Man because his asking price was too high. Feige said at the time Fox was looking at developing an Iron Man movie, but they were not willing to give Cruise his fee because it was too much money to pay a star for an untested superhero property.
In American Psycho, during the business card scene, Patrick Bateman breaks into a sweat when he looks at Paul Allen's business card. The film's director Mary Harron revealed Christian Bale was able to sweat on command. Bale was able to do this for multiple takes and managed to start at the exact time for every take they did for this scene. Due to Home Alone being a children's movie, Joe Pesci was prohibited from using profanity on set. Pesci would frequently ad-lib profanity into his lines. Pesci's incoherent ramblings in the film were largely improvised by the actor to avoid swearing. The film's director advised him to say fridge instead of the F word. During production on Star Wars Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi, the scenes on Endor were shot in California's Redwood Park. Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca, needed to be surrounded by crew at all times. This was because they thought hunters may have mistaken the 7-foot-tall actor for being the real-life Bigfoot.
Christopher Nolan cut around 30 days off of the Oppenheimer shoot, from about 85 days to around 57 days. He did this as he wanted to free up more of the film's $100 million budget so he could build a replica of Los Alamos from scratch, rather than relying on CGI to fill in the backgrounds. In the opening scene of The Adventures of Tintin, the painter resembles Hergé, the creator of the Tintin comics. He also draws a portrait of Tintin in Hergé's style. Using Hergé's likeness is a tribute to the artist's private joke of incorporating the likeness of his friends and family into the Tintin comics.
Director Zack Snyder had initially wanted to make the Amazons and the Atlanteans in the Justice League movie descendants of Kryptonians who had arrived on Earth thousands of years ago. The director said the studio Warner Brothers were not happy with this suggestion and refused to let him put it into the movie. David Ayer, director of Suicide Squad, has revealed that the Joker forehead tattoo was completely his idea and he takes complete responsibility for it. Ayer originally wanted the tattoo on Jared Leto's forehead to read blessed rather than damaged though. Ayer has said he now regrets the decision to give the Joker a forehead tattoo. Disney executives questioned James Gunn as to why he wanted to cast Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon. The studio didn't get why they would pay Cooper to do a different voice to his own and for him to not show his face. Gunn stated that he cast Cooper because he is a great actor and that's the point, he is creating a character. The post-credit scene in The Avengers shows all of the Avengers eating shawarma. Chris Evans's Captain America covers his face in this scene. This is because the scene was filmed after the movie's release when Evans had a beard for his role in Snowpiercer. Evans wore a prosthetic chin to cover his beard and used his hand to cover the prosthetic.
Henry Cavill's Superman was initially set to cameo at the end of The Flash alongside Supergirl and Wonder Woman. However, James Gunn removed this scene as he didn't want to promise something he had no intention on delivering on. Going forward, Superman will be played by David Corenswet in the rebooted movie of the character titled Superman Legacy. Heath Ledger ad-libbed an iconic scene of the Joker clapping after he was imprisoned in The Dark Knight. During the take, the police officers clapped to congratulate Gordon on his promotion to commissioner. Ledger began clapping along with the other actors. Christopher Nolan saw this and included the clapping in future takes, and it made it into the final cut of the movie. After being tasked with composing the score for Schindler's List, John Williams, not believing he was up to the task, told Steven Spielberg that he would need a much better composer than him. Spielberg told Williams, "I know, but they are all dead." Williams did compose the film's score and went on to win the Academy Award for Best Original Score. Director Neil Marshall had initially been set to work on the movie Drive, with Hugh Jackman starring as the driver. This version of the movie was said to be an LA set action mystery with horror elements. Both the director and star left the project, and the movie ended up being directed by Nicholas Winding Refn and starring Ryan Gosling. In The Shawshank Redemption, Tim Robbins' character Andy Dufresne asks Morgan Freeman's character Red, "Why do they call you Red?" To which he responds, "Maybe because I'm Irish." This is a reference to the original novella by Stephen King, in which Red was a red-haired Irishman. At one point, Harrison Ford was set to play the role in the film. In X-Men, Hugh Jackman used real metal claws on the set in his fight scene with Mystique on Liberty Island. During the scene, Jackman ended up stabbing the stuntwoman who played Mystique in the arm, and blood started gushing out of her wound. Rather than being upset though, she expressed joy at the fact that she had been stabbed by Wolverine. Director Peter Ramsey says that returning to play Anakin Skywalker in the Ahsoka Disney Plus series meant a lot to actor Hayden Christensen. Christensen had briefly been seen as Anakin Skywalker in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series before reprising the role for live-action Clone Wars flashbacks in the Ahsoka series. Stephen King, iconic horror writer, said A Quiet Place is an extraordinary piece of work, terrific acting, but the main thing is the silence and how it makes the camera's eye open wide in a way few movies manage. The film's star and director John Krasinski has said that King's comments were the single greatest compliment he received for the film. The end credits scene for Shazam! Fury of the Gods was supposed to feature the members of the Justice Society of America who had featured in Black Adam. Reportedly, Dwayne Johnson blocked the actors from appearing in the end credits scene, and the film's director, David Sandberg, shot the scene with Harcourt and Economos from the Suicide Squad instead. Actor Simon Pegg has revealed that his friend, director Edgar Wright, was originally considered to direct Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, but had to drop out due to his commitments on the movie Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Director Brad Bird was hired instead. He had only directed animated films before directing Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Actor Brian Cox agreed to work on 007 Road to a Million, thinking he had been cast in the next instalment of the James Bond franchise. Rather than being the villain of the new film, Cox portrayed the game controller who is behind the challenges in the reality show. Despite it not being a Bond film, Cox said he did have fun working on the show. Joel Kinnaman has revealed that he was very surprised that his character Rick Flag was killed off in The Suicide Squad by James Gunn, especially considering soon after Gunn became the head of DC Studios. Kinnaman said he loves the death scene as it was a good way to go. In the new DC continuity, Frank Grillo has been cast as Rick Flag Sr. Patrick Stewart had never heard of X-Men comic books when he was approached to play Professor Charles Xavier in the film of the same name. The producers showed him a comic with Xavier on the cover, and Stewart said, "What am I doing on the front of a comic book?" After seeing his resemblance to the iconic character, Stewart immediately accepted the role.
Director Christopher McQuarrie has revealed that the original opening scene to Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 had a flashback with Ethan Hunt and Alan Hunley as played by Alec Baldwin. The scene would have had the two walking alongside the Berlin Wall with Hunley lecturing Hunt on being a spy. The scene would then cut to Ethan Hunt standing at Hunley's grave. Chris Brewster, Charlie Cox's stunt double for the 3 seasons of Netflix's Daredevil, revealed that Charlie Cox had requested Marvel Studios bring him back as his stunt double for Daredevil Born Again on multiple occasions. However, Marvel declined. Brewster went on to say that none of the crew from Netflix's Daredevil were invited back to work on Daredevil Born Again. Steven Spielberg had initially wanted to make a live-action Adventures of Tintin movie, with Snow the dog being brought to life with CGI. However, Spielberg thought a live-action movie wouldn't be respectful of the source material, and thus decided to make the whole movie in animation using motion capture instead. The funny how scene from Goodfellas was not originally in the script. Joe Pesci improvised the line during the rehearsals for the scene with Ray Liotta. Director Martin Scorsese loved the improvised moment so much it was added to the screenplay, then shot and ended up in the film. The scene has become iconic and one of the most memorable scenes in the movie. Kazuhiro Sushi, the makeup artist for How the Grinch Stole Christmas, revealed that he required therapy to deal with the stress of working with Jim Carrey. Sushi said that Carrey would frequently become frustrated with the lengthy makeup process and lash out. Sushi took a break from the film and only returned after being assured by director Ron Howard that Carrey would keep his temper in check. Christian Bale gained £40 to play Vice President Dick Cheney in the movie Vice. Bale is no stranger to gaining and losing weight for roles, but this time he sought the help of nutritionists and doctors to do it safely. However, Bale has said he will not gain such a large amount of weight for a role ever again, as he has been advised of the severe health risks involved. Martin Scorsese had initially offered Harrison Ford the role of Sam Bowden in his remake of Cape Fear. However, Ford was interested in shaking off his hero image and wanted to play the villain Max Cady instead. However, at the time, Robert De Niro had already been cast in the role and wasn't willing to give it up. Scorsese ended up casting Nick Nolte in the role of Sam Bowden instead. During the scene in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, where Harry witnesses the death of Sirius Black, Daniel Radcliffe's screams are muted. Reportedly, this was because Radcliffe's scream was so raw and gut-wrenching that the film's director David Yates refused to put it in. Reportedly, the scream was so powerful that both Emma Watson and Helena Bonham Carter were brought to tears because of it. In Goodfellas, Robert De Niro insisted they used real money in the scene where the character Jimmy hands out cash. This was because De Niro didn't like the way fake money felt. The prop master ended up withdrawing $5,000 of his own money for De Niro to hand out. After each take, all the money was handed back and needed to be counted before anyone was allowed to leave the set. Matt Damon's emotional reaction to hearing Jessica Chastain's character Commander Lewis's voice in The Martian was real. The other actors had finished filming months before, and he was only hearing their pre-recorded voices. Damon cried because he was thinking about how his character Mark Watney had been alone on Mars for 2 years. Ridley Scott only needed 1 take for this scene. The original title for the first John Wick movie was Scorn. However, Keanu Reeves kept referring to it as John Wick during a press junket, and the studio decided to change the title to capitalise on the name recognition. The screenwriter Derek Kolstad said that the marketing department estimated that the name change was worth $4 to $5 million in free advertising. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who plays live-action General Hera Syndulla in the Ahsoka series, expressed gratitude that the makeup team was able to reduce her makeup process to around an hour during production. At first, the process took a lot longer, but as production went on, the makeup team was able to speed up the process without a decline in quality. Before Timothy Dalton had been cast to play James Bond in The Living Daylights, he had been approached by producers back in 1969 to play the role as Sean Connery's replacement in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Dalton said at the time he was too young to play the character. He was then offered the role again in For Your Eyes Only, but turned it down as he didn't like the direction the Bond series was going at the time. Daniel Day-Lewis went to great lengths to prepare for his role as Bill the Butcher in Gangs of New York. He had his own eyeball covered in a prosthetic glass to simulate Bill's fake eye. He learnt how to tap his fake eye with the tip of a knife without blinking. This was a very difficult task, but Day-Lewis was determined to get it right. He reportedly practiced for hours every day until he was able to do it perfectly. In the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Leonardo DiCaprio's character Rick Dalton is seen using a flamethrower and exclaiming, "That's too hot, is there anything we can do about the heat?" This was not in the script and was actually filmed during rehearsals. DiCaprio's reaction to the heat of the flamethrower was genuine, and director Quentin Tarantino found it so funny that he decided to include it in the movie. Keanu Reeves reportedly pushed for his character to be killed off in John Wick Chapter 4. An alternate ending showed John Wick having survived without a doubt as he looked on at his grave. However, the studio wanted to respect the actor's wishes and leave it more ambiguous to the fate of the character. Despite the push for John Wick to be killed off, Reeves says he would return for a fifth movie in a heartbeat. Small Soldiers director Joe Dante had originally wanted the Commando Elite to be voiced by the cast members of Predator. This would have seen Shane Black voice Kip Killigan, Jesse Ventura voicing Brick Bazooka, Bill Duke as Link Static, Sonny Landham as Nick Nitro, Carl Weathers as Butch Meathook, and Arnold Schwarzenegger as Major Chip Hazard. In Disney's Tarzan, the iconic Tarzan yell was not provided by Tony Goldwyn, the voice of the titular character. Goldwyn attempted to do the scream but couldn't do it convincingly. Brian Blessed, who voices the film's villain Clayton, approached the producers and said he could do the yell instead. They initially turned down Blessed's offer, but he burst out into the yell in front of them, to which they immediately changed their minds. Despite writing the original screenplay for Fast and Furious, the first installment in the Fast and Furious franchise, writer and director David Ayer has said he has nothing to show for it and receives no residuals from the massive profit the movie franchise has made. To date, the Fast and Furious franchise has made around $7.5 billion globally. Nicolas Cage revealed that he did shoot scenes in the cancelled Superman Lives costume on the set of The Flash. However, what ended up in the movie was not what he shot. His scene was simply him looking through a portal, seeing the multiverse. However, the filmmakers created a CGI version of Cage fighting a giant spider, something that was reportedly set to happen in Tim Burton's movie Superman Lives. According to the cinematographer Wally Pfister, Warner Brothers executives approached Christopher Nolan about making the movie Inception in 3D. But he refused the idea, claiming that it would distract from the storytelling experience of the movie. Nolan felt that 3D effects would take away from the audience's immersion in the movie's world and would make it more difficult to follow the complex plot. Matthew Vaughn, who directed X-Men First Class, was initially set to return as director for X-Men Days of Future Past. When he was attached to the film, Josh Hellman had been cast as Kane Marco, aka Juggernaut, and was going to be used to break Magneto out of the prison instead of Quicksilver. When Thorne dropped out of the project, Juggernaut was scrapped, however Josh Hellman was cast to play William Stryker instead. Dave Filoni has said he cast Lars Mikkelsen in the live-action role of Grand Admiral Thrawn after the actor did the voice in Rebels. During writing, Filoni said he couldn't hear anyone else but Mikkelsen when writing for the character in Ahsoka, so he knew they would have to bring him back for the role. Filoni said that he is really happy with Lars Mikkelsen's live-action performance. Director Gareth Edwards has revealed that there is so much inaccuracy regarding his involvement in the Rogue One reshoots. It was reported at the time that Tony Gilroy came in and rewrote the script and replaced Edwards during the reshooting process. Edwards says that himself, Gilroy and other writers all worked together until the last minute of the reshoots and throughout post-production. In The Lion King, during the musical number Be Prepared, actor Jeremy Irons, who voices Scar, damaged his voice during recording of the song. The final verse of the song was recorded with Jim Cummings, best known for voicing Winnie the Pooh. Cummings matched Irons' voice to finish the musical number. You can hear Cummings sing from So Prepare for the Coup of the Century till the end of the song. Florence Pugh, who portrays Jean Tatlock in Oppenheimer, said that Christopher Nolan had apologised to her for how small her role was. Pugh didn't mind and was very keen to work with the director. She said she'd happily be in the background of a scene making coffee if it meant she could work with him. Pugh also stated that Christopher Nolan has the utmost respect for every single person who is working on the set. Zombieland features Bill Murray playing a version of himself in the movie, but was not the only actor who was approached to have a cameo in the film. Patrick Swayze was approached to have a cameo similar to what Bill Murray had, but turned it down because of his illness. Other actors approached to cameo as zombies included Joe Pesci, Mark Hamill, Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Bacon, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Matthew McConaughey. Mads Mikkelsen, who plays Le Chiffre in Casino Royale, revealed that all of the actors in the poker scenes knew how to play poker except for Daniel Craig. Craig had to learn how to play poker for the role, and he reportedly did so by watching hours of poker footage and practicing with professional poker players. Mikkelsen went on to say that despite all his practice, Craig sucked at playing poker. In American Psycho, Mary Harron directed Willem Dafoe to play Donald Kimball in 3 different ways: as someone who believes Bateman is guilty, as someone who does not believe Bateman is guilty, and as someone who is unsure if Bateman is guilty. The different takes were then combined to create a character whose feelings about Bateman are ambiguous, leaving the audience unsure of whether Kimball is toying with Bateman or is completely oblivious to his guilt. Andrew Garfield has said that reprising his role of Spider-Man in Spider-Man No Way Home was a healing experience. Garfield had previously only starred in The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2, with his 3rd movie in the trilogy being cancelled by Sony before another reboot. Many fans consider Garfield's performance in No Way Home to be a standout and have even called for the actor to reprise his role again in the future. Rob Reiner's movie Stand By Me was an adaptation of the Stephen King novella called The Body. During filming, Kiefer Sutherland was teaching River Phoenix how to play Stand By Me on guitar. Rob Reiner commented that he hadn't heard the song in 20 years and decided to rename the movie Stand By Me. The studio reportedly also thought the title of The Body was misleading to what the film was about. Michael Madsen was Quentin Tarantino's first choice to play Vincent in Pulp Fiction, but the actor had already signed on to star in Wyatt Earp instead. This led Tarantino to casting John Travolta in the role. Tarantino also talked about doing a movie called Double V, with Michael Madsen's character Vic Vega from Reservoir Dogs and John Travolta's Vincent Vega from Pulp Fiction. In Tarantino's universe, the characters are brothers.
Leonardo DiCaprio requested that his role in the film Killers of the Flower Moon be changed from Tom White, the heroic FBI agent, to Ernest Burkhart. Screenwriter Eric Roth said that DiCaprio was drawn to the character of Burkhart because he was a more complex and challenging role. With DiCaprio changing roles, the entire screenplay was rewritten to have Burkhart as the main character. Ridley Scott, the director of Blade Runner, has expressed regret that he was unable to direct the sequel, Blade Runner 2049. Scott was forced to choose between directing Blade Runner 2049 and Alien Covenant, as both films were set to be in production at the same time. Scott said that he should not have been forced to make that decision, as he would have preferred to direct both films. Scott did produce Blade Runner 2049, but the film was directed by Denis Villeneuve. During the filming of The Hateful Eight, Kurt Russell accidentally destroyed a 150-year-old antique guitar. The real guitar was supposed to be swapped out for a replica for the actor to break. The real guitar was not replaced during the take, and in the scene, Russell ended up smashing the antique guitar, destroying it beyond repair. After this incident, the Martin Guitar Museum, who provided the antique for the film, said they would never lend out a guitar for filming ever again. Quentin Tarantino originally considered casting Leonardo DiCaprio as Colonel Hans Landa in Inglourious Basterds. However, he decided he needed to find an actor who could speak German fluently. After watching the auditions for many German actors, Tarantino thought that the role was unplayable. However, when Christoph Waltz auditioned for the role, Tarantino knew he had found the right actor for the role. Waltz went on to win the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for this performance. When Margot Robbie pitched her idea of the Barbie movie to Warner Brothers, the actress stated the film would be able to make $1 billion at the box office. Robbie said this as she wanted them to make the movie. However, the film exceeded the billion-dollar expectations to become the highest-grossing movie of 2023. Barbie was able to cross the $1 billion mark after 17 days of being released. Barbie has made about $1.4 at the box office to date. The lineup scene in The Usual Suspects was supposed to be a serious scene. However, Kevin Pollak revealed that they did a full day of filming for the scene and all the actors couldn't keep a straight face, which led them all messing around all day. He said Benicio del Toro also farted 12 times in a row during filming, which led to lots of laughter from the other actors. The scene that ended up in the movie was one of these takes and not one of the serious ones they filmed at the start of the day. Timothy Olyphant revealed on a podcast that he auditioned for the role of Captain James T. Kirk in J.J. Abrams' reboot of the franchise. Initially, Olyphant went to read for the role of Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy, but was told that Carl Urban had already been cast. Abrams suggested he read for Kirk instead, as that role hadn't been cast yet. Despite a great audition, Abrams called Olyphant and said he had cast someone younger. Chris Pine had nabbed the role of Kirk instead. Ridley Scott's movie Kingdom of Heaven was heavily cut down for the theatrical release as the studio felt the movie was too long. When the film came out, critics were not too positive about the movie. Because of this, Scott released his director's cut, which added around 45 minutes of scenes back into the movie. With the director's cut, more context and other plot points were covered, which made the film flow a lot better. Many critics praise the director's cut as a breathtaking historical epic. Director Michael Bay revealed that he didn't want to keep directing Transformers movies, and the series' executive producer Steven Spielberg told him he should stop after the third movie. Each film did very well at the box office, with the studio begging Bay to return for more. Michael Bay stayed on to direct 2 more in the franchise, Transformers Age of Extinction and Transformers The Last Knight. The director also admitted that directing all the movies was a lot of fun. Ben Mendelsohn, who plays director Orson Krennic in Rogue One, initially thought of doing a British accent in line with other Imperial officers from the original Star Wars films. However, he was advised against using a British accent by the film's director Gareth Edwards. Edwards said, "It feels like if an empire ever had a job vacancy, they go to the Royal Shakespeare Company to headhunt people. I like the idea that Ben's character was much more working class and rose in the ranks through sheer force of personality and ideas." The remake of The Lion King was promoted as a live-action adaptation, but really just used photorealistic animations. However, the director Jon Favreau said he inserted a single in-camera shot into the movie. Favreau said, "There are 1,490 rendered shots created by animators and CG artists. I slipped in one single shot that we actually photographed in Africa to see if anyone would notice. It is the first shot of the movie that begins the circle of life." Man of Steel had originally been conceived as a standalone trilogy in the same vein as The Dark Knight. Christopher Nolan had written the Man of Steel screenplay with David S. Goyer, and they had planned this to be a trilogy not connected to the larger continuity of other DC properties. Nolan even handpicked Zack Snyder to direct the film. It was only after Warner Bros. Saw the box office results for The Avengers that they wanted to link Man of Steel to other DC heroes so they could build a Justice League franchise on par with what Marvel Studios had done with The Avengers. Roger Moore was supposed to retire from the role of James Bond after For Your Eyes Only. American actor James Brolin had actually been cast as Moore's replacement for Octopussy. However, around the same time of Octopussy's release, Sean Connery was set to reprise the role of James Bond in the Thunderball remake Never Say Never Again. After worrying that having a new face of Bond going up against Sean Connery's Bond would have a negative impact on the box office, Eon Productions invited Moore to play the role again. Ron Perlman, who played Hellboy in Hellboy and Hellboy 2 The Golden Army, has said that he wants to complete the trilogy with Guillermo del Toro. Perlman said it would be hard work doing the prosthetics at his age, and he has stated that he is too old for the role, yet he thinks he owes it to the fans to complete the trilogy. Perlman is currently 73 years old and hasn't played the role since 2009 when he was 59 years old. Currently, a new Hellboy reboot called Hellboy the Crooked Man is set for release in 2024 with Jack Kessie in the lead role. Christopher Nolan has revealed why some viewers have difficulty hearing the dialogue in his films, including Oppenheimer. He does not use ADR, automated dialogue replacement, which is when actors re-record their dialogue in a studio to improve the audio quality. Nolan prefers to use the audio from the original performance, stating that he likes to use the performance that was given in the moment rather than the actor re-voicing it later. He acknowledges that this is an artistic choice that some people disagree with, but he believes it is the best way to capture the actor's performance. For his role in The 40-Year-Old Virgin, actor Steve Carell actually had his chest waxed in the scene as he wanted to have a genuine reaction to the pain. Also, the actress who played the waxing lady had told the casting director she had experience waxing chests in order to get the role. However, this was not true. At one point, someone noticed that the actress had not applied Vaseline around Carell's nipples, and one of the crew stopped her from waxing his chest. Had she waxed around the nipple without Vaseline, there was a chance the wax strip would have ripped off Carell's nipple. When Henry Cavill was filming the helicopter sequences for Mission Impossible Fallout, he was also contracted to take part in the Justice League reshoots. Warner Bros. Wanted Henry Cavill to shave off his mustache for the Justice League reshoots, but he wasn't allowed to by Paramount, who were producing the Mission Impossible movie. Warner Bros. Even had visual effects artists mock up an edit of putting a mustache on Cavill digitally for Paramount, as it was easier to paint on a mustache than to remove facial hair using visual effects. Warner Brothers even offered to fund the whole process for Paramount, yet they still refused. Robert Pattinson had to attend the audition for The Batman during rehearsals for Tenet. In order to get time away to audition, Pattinson told Tenet director Christopher Nolan that he had a family emergency. Nolan saw through this and simply said, "You're auditioning for Batman, aren't you?" Nolan also congratulated Pattinson on getting the role before it was announced publicly and before Pattinson had told anyone he had got the role. Nolan was still under contract with Warner Bros. At the time, having directed the previous Batman trilogy. As a result, he was kept informed of Warner Bros.' plans for Batman films.